So, as we embark on our latest blog around, impact that news can make to change lives, it's important to look in terms of the national, local, and the global policies around travel. Today, travel has to become more accountable. There has to be a lot of impetus given on essential travel versus non-essential travel. As the world goes through global humanitarian crisis, refugee crisis, it has been stated that around 40% of internationally displaced workers do not have a country of origin. Their brain and their eyes are being tracked, and they are being used by various countries such as Singapore, Malaysia, China, Russia, Ukraine for any sinister agenda. There are also many regions and many parts of the world where they proclaim that there is an India, but it's not really an India. It is important to understand that today, even though global politicians and global governments have learned a lot from international humanitarian agenda around displaced workers and refugees, it's important to understand that no airport in the world, and specifically typically the developed markets, airports in the European Union, airports in UK, or even in Asia, should be creating news around somebody without disclosing it to them. Also, it is imperative that if somebody is creating a news, they have to look at two things. They have to look at personal data, and they have to also look in terms of full disclosure of the personal data. That is important. The second is that for any mass media publication, for pay TV, for live TV, for any mass broadcasting, or for premium private television, one would not have to track people's mobility data and mobile data. It is also important today that artificial intelligence is used to make better stories, but artificial intelligence, including the logic that has been given by bots, is not being used to harm and hurt humans. What is basically, with around 40% of internationally displaced workers around the world who report pandemic recovery, who report death due to an earthquake, it becomes crazy that the most of the news stories today are focusing on violence. I do know personally many creative artists, agencies, graphic designers that contextualize insanity, and they contextualize people to get drugs. They give drugs to people to change their biometrics so that they can push some humanitarian agenda. It is shocking that that can actually hurt a lot of people's lives. It is also shocking that if people get into mobility rights of others and start tracking their mobile data, start tracking their walking pathway, it is an intrusion of privacy that happens. When you look at the biggest danger today is getting biometric screening in a country like Malaysia, say in a region where you are not in control of your biometric screening. And the second biggest threat is using illness, a pandemic, or a disease as a TV opportunity or as a global event to hurt people's lives, to change their health, and make the biometric data actually push a global agenda. We have to be very careful that today, as strict screening is there in airports like Heathrow and Schiphol, in Gatwick. You have to have airports where people do not make information or news around you without you being in consent. Also, it's important to understand that there are a lot of students today who get student work permit. There are a lot of people who get work permits. There are a lot of people who get business permits and business visa. There are companies, immigration extortionists, and people who would be using voice activated software to talk to you and associate you to a region that you don't belong. There would be actually humanitarian, global violent news readers or perpetrators who would be programming on your mobile to talk to you in a way that you belong to a region that you don't identify with. It could be that a person is probably of a particular biometric data, a particular person is of a race which is different. They would be actually trying to target you for some kind of a genocide that is being offered by minority people, like a group of Muslims, a group of radicalized people. So it's important to understand that voice recognition software cannot change identities of people and for pushing an agenda. It's also important to understand that voice recognition software, through certain language that they build in their in their dictionary, they cannot try to hurt human identity, human biometrics. One of the biggest act, the Graham Lilly Beach Act and the Privacy Law Act states that if you are making information about somebody, you do not have to change their biometrics, you do not have to change their data so that it can actually push some kind of a agenda, which is agenda of a military. Today students have to be informed that they should not be part of any agenda which is which actually makes them be part of a war crime or a hate crime or a military. It's important to understand that as you become a strategist, you have to choose the top headlines or top themes that you would like to represent. You have to be an ambassador, a brand ambassador for who you are. You have to also make your global local maps in terms of the regions that you want to go, why you want to go, how you would influence that region, and what is it that you would like to do. Work has become an imperative format of being recognized. Today you have 176 million users that are on LinkedIn. It's important to understand that and focus in terms of identifying with all your personal data so that it does not get breached for any veiled threat or a veiled program.